You're welcome to News Today on Joy News Multi TV. Coming up in this bulletin, Deputy Minister for Food and Agriculture, Hannah Bisiu, confirms an outbreak of bird flu in parts of Accra, though she maintains her ministry is yet to confirm whether the samples gathered so far contain the H5N1 strain of the virus. Traders at the Kejetia market demonstrate in protest of ongoing registration of traders by the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly. And Accra High Court prefers fresh charges against former NSS boss as it begins the trial of some 34 national service staff for financial impropriety. These and more, including business, sports, and international updates in this 1-hour broadcast. My name is Kovna Chenche. This is Joy News Today. Deputy Minister of Food and Agriculture, Hannah Bisiu, has confirmed there is an outbreak of bird flu in parts of Accra. She was, however, quick to clarify that the ministry is not yet certain whether it is the H5N1 strain of the virus. The N1 strain is responsible for bird-to-human transference. So far, there have only been animal-to-animal infections, but not animal-to-human. Nonetheless, a number of live fowls have been destroyed as a preemptive measure. She spoke to me earlier.
Well, we have some situations at Achimota and on Katamanso, but it's not confirmed. Here we are waiting for the laboratory confirmation. We did our own test here, but you need to send the sample out. The samples were picked to be sent to Italy yesterday at noon.
How long ago did we detect these suspected cases?
Well,
how long ago?
Well, I just, let me see, about a week ago. About a week or let's say about 10 days ago. But you know, the farmers, when they start experiencing some of these things, first of all, they will start giving medications to their animals. Some of them will find their means of doing what they want to do before they bring it to the vets.
I see. And
even though education and things had gone on, so this is not
okay.
Something that
between that period, between that time and now, you are saying that these cases still remain suspected cases. But within that same period, reports suggest that the Noguchi Memorial Institute has actually confirmed that this is bird flu.
No, report has not suggested that they've confirmed that it's bird flu. They've had H5, and so they've not confirmed. The confirmation is what we sent out. That is what comes to confirm. So Noguchi has done its own. The veterinary lab has also done their own. The confirmation sample is what went out.
Okay. So now we are obviously taking precautions. What kind of message do you have for the public on taking precautions on as far as
the message that we have for our farmers is to activate all their biosecurity systems. And also make sure they don't get strangers on your farm. And also we should not bring in birds from any other areas onto our farms. And please, should you, if even you lose a bird, kindly take that bird immediately to the vet. Don't try and kill your birds. Don't try and eat them. Because if it's H5N1, it's zoonotic. Zoonotic disease, it means that it moves from the animals to human beings. And anytime it's okay, you have more than 60% mortality in humans. And so we should just check anything that we see, any form of mortality, anything that you see on your farm, please kindly contact the vets. Apart from that, we those traveling outside, when you go to Nigeria, Togo, Burkina, Ivory Coast, please, in as much as you want to bring any bird into our country, remember that a single bird that you bring into the country, that could be a source of infection for other birds, and it may be fatal and for us as a country. So my advice to farmers is to activate your biosecurity system. If you have workers, you should assign them to, particular areas, and don't allow one worker to move from, one room to the other. so that if you have a situation in one room, you're not going to pass it on to the others. Every pen should have their disinfection pen, that you should have your biosecurity system, which is very, very important. Cars entering to your farms, you should make sure that the ties are disinfected with a disinfectant before they come in onto your farm.
Traders at the KJTR market are protesting the selective manner in which the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly is registering traders for the new market location. The demonstrators accuse the KMA of registering cronies of ruling government and wants the government to intervene. Erastus Asaridonko joins us live over the telephone now with much more on what's currently happening. Erastus, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. So what's the latest on this? Okay, we just lost Erastus Asaridonko there. We'll get back to him pretty shortly. But imagine attending a funeral with no drinks, food or souvenirs. Not a sight many Ghanaians are used to, but that is what a directive is compelling residents of Apam in the central region to live by. Now, the directive put in place by the chiefs and people of the town is to check excessive spending on the dead. Well, joining us, Francis Aban visited the town to find out the extent of compliance.
We realize that the children who will be tomorrow leaders of this country are not benefiting from the old rules and customs that we are practicing. That is why, as a proactive chief, I have to see to the welfare of the future of the children in this country.
Now, when you look at the old directive that you just mentioned, what was wrong with it?
The wrong aspect of it all is that there are certain norms or customs that are not in the good interest of the children. For instance, when funerals come, the parents spend quite a lot of money on necessary expenses on funerals, like cloth for the funeral. They will spend quite a heavy sum of money for clothing. They also spend a lot of money for entertainment, like drinking. And they drink up to sometimes 10 in the night for no apparent reason, when they have not got the money to pay for the school fees of the little ones that they are bringing into the world. And I felt it was totally wrong, and that I have to make sure that they do the right thing at the right time.
Okay, Nana, you've been in power for the past 30 years, is it this year? Now, when does it become apparent to you that this problem needed fixing?
This is about the third time that I'm reviewing the customary rights of the community. The first one I did in 1986. It lasted for almost about 10 years. We reviewed it in 1997, and then it also went on. But quite recently, I realized that they are not following the rules that had been set down, and I felt it was totally wrong, and I had to get up and make sure that the rules that we are making will perpetuate, and that is why.
Why were they not adhering to these rules that you put up initially? For which reason you had to step it up and review it?
Yeah, because some of the old people that I established the rules and the customary rights with them, majority of them had died, and the task force that we instituted were not doing their work well. And for that reason, people took undue advantage and overruled some of the rules.
The first time we heard of this, everyone was startled. They were like, this is something new. We've never seen anything like this before in Ghana. Now, some would say with every new policy, there are challenges. Have you had any pushback from your people when you first introduced these new measures?
They acclaimed it. When I introduced these new measures in 1986, they all acclaimed it. But somewhere along the line, there was laxity, and they couldn't continue.
Okay. So what makes you so sure that today, with the review that you've done, you would get a continuous support and strict adherence to these new rules? And I'm asking that because we've been to town, we've spoken to some of your country folk. Yeah. Some say there are some of the rules in there that you need to relax a bit. For instance, the bit on the souvenirs that you give out, the buckets, the plastic buckets that you give out. Some say it is an incentive for people to pay a bit more in terms of remitting the family for the loss and trying to assuage for some of the costs that they've incurred in the process. What do you make of that? They say they want a review of that. So that's what some of the women are saying. What do you say to that?
I don't agree. I will not agree today nor tomorrow. This same rules, when we established it in 1986 and reviewed it in 1997, there were a lot of people who were kicking against. But in the final analysis, they realized that it was a very good thing, and they came to pressurize us to reintroduce it.
The chief executive of the Environmental Protection Agency has charged mining companies to adopt best practices to protect the environment. Mining companies more often than not leave behind huge environmental challenges within communities where they operate. Now, speaking at a seminar in Senchi, Daniel Amlalo says adopting best practices is in the interest of both the mining companies and the communities.
We have Lake Bosuntree, which is an international or a global asset, being encroached upon. People requesting permits to mine in those around the lake. What would be the implication if the impacts are not well articulated and presented for assessment or review? If the impacts are not well articulated and permits is issued, after 5 years, 10 years, what legacy would we leave for our people? Additionally, we also have Ghanaian laws, regulations, and international best practice. And these relate to the various phases of mining, including exploration, project feasibility, construction, operation, and decommissioning. When we request for decommissioning plans or environmental management plans, we aren't able to review this adequately, or we aren't able to issue our permits on time because of the quality of these documents presented to the agency. As already spoken or said by the president of the chamber, the quality of some of the documents are below standard and therefore present difficulty in reviewing. And we thought together with the chamber and the companies involved, we can review this process. We can build capacity on both sides. That's the regulator and also the industry, to ensure that documents presented of high quality and those reviewing also are their capacity upgraded to understand all the issues involved. There is another area that we would need to look at: operations close to communities. Mining and processing operations close to catchment communities have presented problems, and the communities have complained a number of times. Some of these communities are just about 600 meters away from active mine site, some 1.5 kilometers. Apart from 1 or 2 developed countries, maybe New Zealand, you find mines far away from communities. Australia, Canada, US, what problems are presented, and therefore the understanding of the community members and the mines have to be critically looked at. The resources around them, water, soil, and others, have to be critically analyzed. We have also looked at complaint management in relation to close proximity of these operations to catchment communities. Numerous complaints have been leveled against companies, and their response and resolution rates need to be improved. How can we do this if they are not well documented? We have used the ACOBEM program as a provision for speedy resolution, but the impetus is yet to be fully achieved.
The managing editor of the Insight newspaper, Kwesi Pratt, has been questioning government's decision to privatize some state-owned property, among which is the Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG. Now, his reaction follows a defense put up by Minister of State at the presidency, Rashid Pelpo, on government's decision to privatize some state-owned enterprises. Mr. Pratt was speaking at an event organized by the Socialist Forum of Ghana on the privatization of state-owned enterprises here in Accra.
Between 1983 and now, our national currency has been cumulatively devalued by about 30,000%. Now, if you take reckless economic decisions, which leads to the devaluation of your currency by 30,000%, why would your industry not need recapitalization? Your industry needs common economic sense to tell you that your industry will need recapitalization. And that is not because the Ghanaian is inherently lazy or is incapable of thinking. It is because of bad government policies. Why? Today, you hear MPP, NDC fighting about the rate of inflation and so on. If our governments are not in charge of our economy, and it is clear that our governments have never been in charge of our economy, which sector do they control? Even the cocoa sector has been privatized. So if you are not in charge of the economy, why do you pretend that you can solve the problem of inflation? Or you can make GDP rise? You are not in charge. That is simple.
All right, so we'll be going back to Kumasi right now, where traders at the KJTR market are protesting against the selective manner in which the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly is registering traders for the new market location. Erastus Asaridonko joins me now over the telephone with much more on what is currently going on. So, Erastus, what's the latest on this demonstration?
Well, I must say that they ended sitting here at the Regional Coordinating Council, where some of the elderly women in the association have been shedding tears in front of the Director of Administration who came to take the petition. All they are saying is that they are not being treated fairly by the mayor of Kumasi and that they want the president to step in. So the petition, there were two. One was presented to the minister himself. One, they addressed it to the president himself. And what they are saying is that they want the president to come down, touch base, see what is going on, and they believe he will chat to see them out of this predicament. But let me speak briefly with this executive member.
Initially, we ended there should be a registration in the credit here, but the registration that we did, the KMA did, there wasn't any identifier proof that you have been. And what I know is they took a data without giving you anything. They just did it. You don't trust them. We don't trust them. There is no trust in what they did because there wasn't any proof. What do we know that after they will print, they will give us the ID or something like that. But even what you know, even when we are going to vote, we need something, identification. What do you want the president to do? We want the president to come in. So there's certain a process is like that. We should see the concerned people of KJTR so that everything should be checklist. Those people, we are not stopping the development. We want development, but the development should be in all of us. We can't develop or else be in hassle.
Okay, so you had the executive member, and these are their main concerns.
So what has been the response of authorities at the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly, and indeed the minister who actually got this petition from these traders?
Well, currently the minister is out on an assignment at Agogo, and so the Director of Administration at the RCC, the petition, what he said briefly was that this issue has come to the acting regional minister, Mr. Kopoku, before. There was a roadmap. And so a lot of discussions have gone on, but they will relay the message to the various authorities, and they are sure they will be contacted.
Thank you very much, Erastus, for that update. Erastus Asaridonko is my colleague in the Ashanti region. He brought us up to speed on that particular demonstration in that region. Now let's do politics now. In Greater Accra Regional Chairman of the New Patriotic Party, Ishmael Ashiti, says they will not hesitate to use legitimate means to drive out the national chairman and General Secretary of the party if its National Executive Committee fails to respond to petitions for the two to step aside. Now, though he admits calls for their resignation are unconstitutional, he believes it is in the best interest of the party for the two to be asked to step aside.
According to him, since the two persons were elected into office, the party has not known peace. He outlined a number of issues, such as disregard for party structures and putting parochial interest above the party needs, he says are typical of the two executives.
Well, it has been happening from the day we voted for the present national executives. We have been trying to manage it. but we just got 1.5 years to go into election 2016. And we feel we cannot sit back again. Something must be done.
Exactly what are your concerns when it comes to the national chairman and the general secretary?
Yes, the party have never known peace since they took office. We've been trying to talk to them, but they've been doing things that make them always on one side against their colleagues. Whilst we below, we are waiting for them to bring out strategies, plans for us to execute the 2016 agenda. They will always be quarreling among themselves at that. What is that? We are tired of their quarreling at the top. We are seriously tired of that.
He says the decision for the two to step aside was agreed by all regional chairmen of the party after a meeting in the Upper East regional capital, Bolgatanga. The meetings were necessitated by the increasing calls for their resignation following the murder of the party's Upper East regional chairman, Adams Mahama. He stressed that if these concerns are not addressed, they will not hesitate to use legitimate means to kick the two out of office.
For what we are doing now, they are not constitutional. But one fact is that the people who took that decision were the people who voted them into office. So it will be very easy to invoke the necessary provisions in our constitution if they will not adhere to our call to step aside. We are counting on the National Council of Elders mainly to go down and start talking to them. I have been informed that some discussions have already started taking place. We are waiting a week, two, and if we are not getting any response coming out, we advise ourselves.
The 6 regions that have so far reached a decision include Central, Eastern, Greater Accra, Western, Volta and Bronga-Hafo. The remaining regions are expected to arrive at a decision by the end of the week. Matilda Pomaga for Joy News, Accra.
Meanwhile, a member of the NDC legal team, Abraham Amalaba, says the opposition NPP is suffering from political and constitutional insanity. Now, speaking on the AM show, Mr. Amalaba noted the party is also suffering from what he calls a breakdown in leadership. The NPP has been in the news following the death of Upper East Chair Adams Mahama from an acid attack. Now, the party's general secretary on Tuesday denied he had resigned his position after a letter purportedly from him was sent to media houses.
What is happening in the MPP can best be described as political and constitutional insanity. Political insanity because I have never heard in any party where the chairman and the general secretary travel to a region to hold a meeting. The meeting is disrupted by hooligans and thugs, and yet the party will stand behind the thugs as against the chairman and the general secretary, condemning the general secretary for going into the region without telling the chairman, as if to say that they have given a license for thuggery and violence. I expected that the party would have protected their general secretary and protect their chairman. But what we saw was rather they were giving out, and it was those who disrupted the meeting that were praised for disrupting the meeting. I think that we cannot reduce our political parties to thuggery and violence. I think that that was distasteful. Constitutional insanity because
Member of Parliament for the Ayawaso West Wogon constituency, Emmanuel Chematin-Jakon, is calling on leadership of the NPP to put the interest of Ghanaians above their own. He's also calling on former President Kufuor to step in to calm the troubled waters.
I think that in the last 2 or 3 weeks, there has been some unfolding drama which any true blue blood NPP person would not want even to comment on. I think that it is not too right. I think that all of us must come down from our high horses and consider the over 5 million people who in the last election voted for our presidential candidate.
What do you think needs to be done by leadership? And if we're talking about leadership, not necessarily, who needs to do something and say, look, sit down, sit down, sit down. What is the problem? Let's resolve it.
I think that leadership is collective in these days. In a political party, leadership is, we have various tiers.
We need some one or two
obviously,
to set people down.
Obviously, I will agree with you. I am hoping that the Council of Elders will...
The Council of Elders won't do the trick.
Why do you say so?
Well, they've met a couple of times. They don't do the trick. We need one or two.
Another person that I am hoping will come into the fray and say, guys, stop this, is a former President Kufuor.
Well,
Police in the Upper East region have sent to an orphanage home a 1.5-year-old child belonging to Asapke Alangde, the suspect on the run in the case of the murder of Adams Mahama, the late NPP chairman. Now, Upper East PR of the Ghana Police Service, ASP Thomas Agbanyo, says, but for the timely rescue of the child by the police, the child would have died because the house was later set ablaze by unknown persons. My colleague Albert Sori joins us over the telephone now with more details. So, Albert, who was taking care of the child before the blaze?
Well, the child was with the mother. And from what the police PRO tells me, they called her when they realized that the suspect was on the run. They called the wife to, talk to her, to, tell her they were coming to visit and then to get some information from her. She said, okay, but by the time they got to the house, she had absconded. She just left the house and left the baby in the room. So it was in the course of a search that they discovered this baby. And they took the baby to a motherless children's home here in Bolgatanga, only to realize later that the house, was attacked by some people. They don't know their identity for now, but these people set the house on fire. Neighbors were able to douse the fire. But what the police PRO was saying was that if the child had been in the room at the time of the fire, the child could have died from burns or maybe smoke inhalation.
I see. Albert, how is the baby doing now?
Yes, the PRO says that the baby is in safe hands. So it's a boy. He's doing well at the moment at the motherless children's home where they left him. So he's safe. There's no problem with the baby at all.
Albert, now we also told that the police has managed to make 2 more arrests in, with regards to this particular issue of the death of Adams Mahama. Do we know the identities of these 2 persons? What more information do we have on that particular arrest?
Well, the information actually is that these are not suspects. What the police PRO said was that in the course of the investigation, they realized that these people may have some information that can help in the investigation. So they actually picked them up, brought them to the police station, and then interrogated them. They wrote statements, and they allowed them to go for now because they have not been able to establish anything that links them directly to the case. So if later on in the course of the investigations, they realize that these people actually had a hand in the crime, then they can arrest them. But for now, they are not being treated as suspects. And that is why he would not give out their identity.
Okay. All right. Albert Sori, thank you very much for that update. That's my colleague, Albert Sori, reporting from the Upper East region. We're taking a break here. We'll be back with some more news right here on News Today. Stay with us. Thanks for staying on. Now, Employment and Labour Relations Minister Haruna Idrisu says a committee put together to settle an out-of-court case involving government and 12 labour unions over the management of Tier 2 pension funds will present its report on the way forward soon. The minister mentioned this while addressing Parliament on the subject. The minister said the out-of-court settlement is in response to the President's directive on the issue, which resulted in an indefinite strike by the unions. My colleague Elton John Bobby joins me now over the telephone lines with much more on this particular one. So Elton, what are we to expect from this report? And did the minister give a timeline as to when they will be out?
Well, the minister is expecting that the committee will present the report by July 2015. I'm sure you are aware there are currently 2 court cases involving the National Pension Regulatory Authority, and this involves 12 organized labor unions. They declared an indefinite strike over the management of the employer-funded occupational scheme as public sector workers. Now, both the 12 unions and government took entrenched positions, and this, culminated in government subsequently suing the labor union for a declaration that their action was illegal. The court.
Hello, Elton. Okay, we seem to have lost Elton John Bobby on the line now. We'll bring him back as and when we do have him. But moving on now, and imagine being stigmatized and humiliated for a disease you have no control over. Now, this is the case of the many women who contract obstetric fistula. Now, these women are seen as outcasts, distanced from society. Upper West Regional Correspondent Rafiq Salam spoke to some women who've been cured of the disease.
Obstetric fistula is the occurrence of a hole between the vagina and the rectum or the bladder. This is caused by prolonged obstructed labor, leaving the victim incontinent of urine or feces, or in some cases, both. It is considered the disease of poverty because of its tendency to occur in women in poor countries who do not have access to good quality health care. One of such women is 19-year-old Gifty Dari, a dressmaker from Kachu in the Wild West district. She recounts the pain and suffering she went through at the hands of close family members.
I used to have sleepless nights and always wondering of the crime I have committed to warrant this. Anytime I cook, they won't eat because of the bad odor that
33 staff of the National Service Scheme have been interdicted following a BNI investigation into financial malfeasance at the scheme. The malfeasance was identified in the operations of the personnel allowances accounts for the 2013-2014 service year. A statement signed by the acting executive director of the scheme, Dr. Michael White-Pesa, said the interdiction is the first in the line of various administrative measures to mete out disciplinary actions. According to the statement, the staff members interdicted so far are mostly from the National Secretariat and regional offices and include regional directors, accountants, and administrators of the scheme. Dr. Pesa White further indicated that management is reviewing sections of the report that focused on the involvement of district-level officers of the scheme to determine the appropriate disciplinary actions. Let's get some more on this particular issue because you're told that the suspects are currently being put before court today, from where my colleague Kwachi Afreniama joins us now over the telephone. So, Afre, can you tell us much more about what transpired in court today?
Well, this case also involved the former National Service Executive Director himself. I'll touch on his case before I move to the 34 other officers, including regional directors and district directors, who were also hauled before the court today. I'm sure you remember that Alhaji Imora Alasan, and I'm talking about the former National Service boss, was earlier charged with stealing in excess of 80 million Ghana cedis. But the earlier charges have now been scrapped, and 5 different charges of conspiracy to stealing and 3 separate attempt to bribe BNI officials have been prepared against him. In fact, on the point of 3 separate attempts to bribe officials of the BNA, I have a copy of the charge sheet with me, and examples are cited here. In the first instance, the charge sheet and the prosecutors say that on or about 19 July of 2014, at the National Service Scheme headquarters, Alhaji Imoro gave 60,000 Ghana cedis to a BNI official, a BNI investigator in this matter. There was another instance, that's the second instance, on 1st August 2014, the National Service Force at the National Service Scheme headquarters again gave 25,000 Ghana cedis. And we're talking about bribe here. And on the third occasion, which he tried to bribe, and which indeed did bribe National Service, a BNI official, I beg your pardon, he gave 15,000 Ghana cedis. And this was at the National Service headquarters once again. But the amount he was accused of having stolen earlier, that's 86 million Ghana cedis, has now been reduced to 28 million Ghana cedis. And his lawyer, one of his legal representatives, when I spoke to him after court proceedings, he says that he's not so surprised about the turn of events, the fact that 5 fresh charges have now been preferred against his client. One thing he rather finds curious is why the state will now, the earlier indication with the earlier charge was that he had stolen in excess of 80 million Ghana cedis. Now the state has made a U-turn saying that he has stolen in excess of 20 million Ghana cedis. That he found pretty strange, but he's still confident that his client will sail through this process, and at the end of the day, justice will be done. And that's according to one of his legal representatives, as I mentioned earlier, Dennis A.J. Jumong.
All right. Now, how about the other persons, the other 34 we are told were supposed to be in court today?
Well, they have all been charged officially, all 35 of them, and they are facing the court now for stealing in excess of 100 million Ghana cedis. And these include, as I mentioned earlier, regional directors and district directors. And the charges are conspiracy to steal and stealing. 3 out of the total number were not in court today. However, the court has granted bail to all 34 officers. And some have met their bail conditions. Others are still making strenuous efforts to meet those bail requirements. In fact, the bail requirements vary from accused person to accused person, the amount involved, the sureties, and all that. But one of the lawyers for the National Service officials who is facing a trial here today at the Financial Division of the High Court, Charles Posen, says that he's also confident that his client, and that's the general view of most of the lawyers I spoke to, confident pretty much so that their clients will sail through. They think that the state does not have enough evidence to prosecute and subsequently convict their client on the part of the court. And they think that at the next agenda date of June 5, when the trial itself begins, everything will be clearer.
Okay. Afre, thank you very much for that update. That's my colleague Kwachi Afre Nyama bringing us up to speed the latest happenings in the law courts. We're taking a break here. When we come back, we have a lot of business stories coming up shortly. Economist Dr. Ishmael Yamson is blaming the cedi's free fall on the lack of policy credibility on the part of government. He believes sustained credibility will bring in additional inflows from donor partners to reduce the pressure on the currency. Dr. Ishmael Yamson tells Red Business he's optimistic the cedi will stabilize in the next 3 months, provided government sticks to measures it has introduced to address the depreciation.
If you already have an accumulation of arrears or forex requests, then unless the central bank has lots of dollars, it is going to take time to pay off all the accumulated forex debts or forex requirements to slow that down, because the only way you are going to get a slowdown of depreciation is when the pressure behind the cedi for dollars also slows down. Maybe in the next 3 months or so, we should begin to see a reduction and an improvement. But I don't think anybody should expect that tomorrow there will be some magic that will save the cedi.
Why are you optimistic that in the next 3 months the cedi is going to stabilize?
No, I'm optimistic because we have the homegrown policy. I have heard what the finance minister has said. I don't have any reason to disbelieve what he said he would do. I believe he will do what he says he will do. It's tough. It is very tough. And the pressures on him will grow. both political pressures, social pressures, they all grow. But if he can stand firm in his belief and create confidence and credibility, as I spoke to you about, then it shouldn't take a long time for us to see a recovery.
Will the policy rates have anything to do with it, the recent increment in the policy rate by the MPC?
Of course, when you raise interest rates, all that it means that you are soaking money from the market interest central bank.
So it will work?
So well, I mean, technically, it should work. But it depends on how much CDs are stashed out there. If there's a lot of money out there and you saw the rate at which we have been increasing money supply, it's been at a very high rate. If that begins to slow down, definitely an increase in interest rates, which means a reduction on the demand side and a reduction on the supply side, will definitely show in the stability of the city. But again, I come back. Let's all agree that what we have said we will do, we do it.
The mining sector has over the years been a major contributor to the economic growth of the country, until recent times that the price of gold especially has dropped significantly, adversely impacting the economy in the process. So to instill investor confidence in the sector, the Environmental Protection Agency and the Chamber of Mines engaged stakeholders with the aim of instilling investor confidence in the sector.
Delayed environmental permitting and its associated challenges have persisted in the mining sector for a number of years. The delay, according to the Environmental Protection Agency, adversely affects on- and off-site mining-related projects. Ransford Sechi is the Director of Intersectoral Network Division at the Environmental Protection Agency.
The companies have raised concerns about delay in permitting. We've also raised concern about quality of the reports based upon which we have to permit. For that reason, there's a need for us to meet to find the middle way. How best could they put their acts together in the manner that they will submit reports that are okay, that are appropriate to enable us issue the permit with the necessary conditions such that the operations do not impact negatively on our environment, our communities, within the operational areas.
Policymakers over the years have failed to streamline activities of unregulated miners, also known as galamsey. But the Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber of Mines says the time has come for duty bearers to formalize that sector. How concerned are you with unregulated mining?
Yeah, it's a major issue for the mining industry, and we have not whined, we have not just thrown our hands in the air in despair. So one of the key things we did years ago is to conduct a study, just to really understand this whole, phenomenon, because you can't resolve a problem if you don't really understand it. So the chamber conducted a study, and the lessons and the findings were quite stark and revealing. What we have done over and above that is to engage various policymakers to discuss what the recommendations are. But illegal mining, which you call unregulated mining, is a major issue which we need to find solutions to. If you consider the fact that about 34% of our gold production is coming from this sector, and virtually we don't get much from that segment of the business, I think it's in our collective interest to formalize, just make sure that they do it and do it well.
Times are indeed tough for mining firms. Suleiman Okone, however, keeps an optimistic outlook.
Next year, for example, in the first quarter of next year, we are expecting a mine to start production. So that would also, improve, returns to the state. A few other companies are also expecting that, they'll start their various expansion projects the latter part of the year, of next year, and beyond. So probably if everything goes well, the price of the metal stays the same or even improves, naturally the situation will turn around sometime next year.
Stakeholders at the seminar hope to find lasting solutions to delays in issuing environmental permits to mining companies.
Well, that's it for business. Benedict Owusu comes up shortly with sports.
Well, my name is Benedict Owusu. Good afternoon and welcome to Sports on News Today. In our very first story, veteran Ghana goalkeeper Richard Kingston says he can convince exiled Black Stars goalie Adam Kwasi to return to the team. Now, Kwasi last featured for Ghana at the 2014 World Cup, where his post-tournament comments made headlines than his performance. He openly questioned the credentials of goalkeepers trainer Nassam Yakubu and also accused him of favoritism after he was dropped as first-choice goalkeeper. Now, Ghana coach Avram Grant has held meetings with the Portland Timbers goalkeeper, but there is still no news. But Richard Kingston believes he can talk to Kwasi to stage a comeback to the team ahead of the 2017 AFCON qualifiers.
Last time I was trying to get his number to talk to him because I know Kwasi will listen to me, because when he came first time, he used to come to my room and ask me some advices, even if you can remember some of his games that he played. When through the interview he mentioned my name. So I am here, or I am in Ghana as trying to help the young ones to achieve what they can achieve in life,
That was veteran goalkeeper Richard Kingston there. Now let's move on to some other stories. And the quarterfinals of the 2015 MTN FA Cup competition draw was held yesterday, and the draw will see the winner of the outstanding match between Asante Kotoko and RTU paired against the winner of the match between Ashanti Gold and Interallies. Heart of Folk, who eliminated actually Ifeanyi City in the last one, have also been paired against second-tier side Tamale Utrecht. The last 8 stage of the competition, which has been scheduled for Sunday, May 31, will also see WAFA, that's West African Football United, play as guest to the winner of the match between Great Astronomers and Mediama, and the winner of the match between Indiana Stars and Istanbul FC will host Sekendi 11 Wise. Now, the FA Cup committee will, however, soon announce dates for the 3 outstanding matches as they await the disciplinary committee's ruling on the match between Indiana Stars and Istanbul, which ended abruptly last Saturday. Let's do some international news now, and the local Black Stars will face Zambia in the 2015 COSAFA Cup plate semi-finals despite losing to Madagascar in the quarter-finals match which was played on Monday. Now, the plate competition, which is part of the COSAFA Cup, was introduced in 2013 to allow teams who lost in the quarter-finals another opportunity to continue playing in the competition. Coach Maxwell Kennedy squad lost out to Madagascar 2-1 in their first match of the tournament, and after the Islanders grabbed a late winner, Zambia, who will be Ghana's opponent in the plate semis, were also beaten on penalties by Namibia in the quarter-final stage. And the Bafana of South Africa, they are the host. They are also set to face Malawi in the other plate semi-final match. The winner of the COSAFA Cup 2015 plate semi-finals will appear in Friday's final at the Royal Bafokeng Sports Stadium. So the local Black Stars game will be played this afternoon at 5 o'clock at the Royal Bafokeng Stadium, and they are up against, they will be playing against Zambia. Zambia also failed to win their quarter-final game, so Ghana have been paired to play against Zambia in the semi-final plate of the ongoing COSAFA Cup in South Africa. Now to the trending issue today, and the FIFA presidential election will take place on Friday as planned, despite the arrest of 7 FIFA officials on charges they received millions of US dollars in bribes. Now, among those arrested are FIFA Vice President Jeffrey Webb. A separate criminal investigation into how the 2018 and 2022 World Cups were allocated has also begun. Sepp Blatter faces Prince Ali bin Al Hussein in Friday's election as he seeks a 5th term as FIFA president. The 7 FIFA officials were arrested after the U.S. Department of Justice issued a 47 count indictment charging 14 defendants with racketeering, wire fraud, and money laundering. Now, conspiracies in 24-year scheme. A statement from the Swiss Attorney General said they seized electronic data from FIFA's headquarters in Zurich as they probed criminal mismanagement and money laundering. Swiss police added that they will question 10 FIFA Executive Committee members who took part when voting took place in December 2010. Russia and Qatar will host the 2018 and 2022 World Cup respectively. FIFA has also ruled out a revote. And on that trending note, we end sports with me, Benedict Owusu. Next is international news with Chen Chen. Don't go away.
Well, thanks for being a part of the bulletin. But before we go, we take you through a quick run through our major stories this hour. Deputy Minister for Food and Agriculture, Hannah Bisiu, has confirmed an outbreak of bird flu in parts of Accra, though she maintains her ministry is yet to confirm whether the samples gathered so far contain the H5N1 strain of the virus. Traders at the KJTR market have held a demonstration in protest of an ongoing registration of traders by the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly. An Accra High Court has preferred fresh charges against former National Service boss Alhaji Imoro Alhassan as it begins the trial of some 34 National Service staff for financial impropriety. Well, that's it for the broadcast. My name is Kwabna Chenchen Bulletin. For more news, do well to log on to myjournline.com. Enjoy the rest of our programs.